but the line is, that's where it runs, that's where the line is. Then you know exactly where you're saving the world and when you don't need to save anything. Then you can be always open to anyone's point of view, anyone's perspective, anyone's suffering without being pulled into their drama, without being sucked into their whatever. See? But if that line is not drawn, if that's not clear to you, then you would always be pulled left, right, and center. And there will be opportunities all the time to see when will you actually see that. You would be placed deliberately in these kind of situations that at some point will feel very unpleasant until you have to, really make that clear realignment within yourself.
So I have a question around something I feel is probably a challenge in terms of it could sidetrack me or sometimes even derail my process, and it's around where I have an impulse to help others, and specifically where I go in very open-heartedly to help someone, but then sometimes I feel I become enmeshed somehow, either in the stories or projections or even my own attachment. And I also wonder whether it's just my own samskaras or just karma that needs to play out. And there's just this sense of how to navigate these situations for the highest good, really, and also not to be sucked into generating further karmic connections, karmic resonances. I also wonder if it just is a part in terms of the process itself, when the grantee at the heart is pierced, whether that will release these subtle connections or attachments that seem to be made in these situations. So, thank you.
Yeah, but I'd like it to be a bit more specific. It's very general. Like, not specific in, not asking to be detailed. But you're speaking to your inquiry already contained answers there and then, right? Right? Yeah, samskaras, all that, right? So you kind of answer it all.
Well, I've thought about it a little bit, yeah. But I mean, I just would really appreciate your reflections around, I guess, where these situations arise. So it's to be very specific, it's often not called for. It's not like I'm going out trying to save the world. It's something comes into my sphere of influence or environment, and then it's a personal, someone asks for advice or help, and then that maybe somehow, some subtle connection is made, and I feel that maybe that's completely unavoidable when you go in openly. I don't know, but then I feel that in myself there is something in the heart, and it came up again this week, and I was really thinking there's something to this which isn't quite in complete alignment, and it is subtle because you can think, I'm trying to act in a dharmic way, and there's something there, and I just, if there's anything you could reflect or share.
And the guidance, like they asking for, right? They bring you into the problems and become to reflect something in you and bring something out of you where you feel like whether you are in alignment with your core values, in alignment with your...
I guess just for in alignment with Dharma, with the path as it unfolds. Mm-hmm. Because I know at least on one occasion anyway, I feel it's sidetracked me somewhat. And then you've got sucked into this thing unintentionally, and right. then it's taking energy, and there's this subtle energetic exchange. So there's in some way your sovereignty is compromised.
Well, again, this part and parcel of human condition. So that, let's say, certain predispositions that we have, right? And when we say predispositions, in this case, it's like overall, it's an amiable predisposition to be able to empathize, to be able to see someone's perspective, right? These are all qualities of an evolved being, an evolved heart, right? Evolved, and there's this certain degree of psychological maturity. So I would say easily, in comparison to someone who is indifferent, aloof, this is more preferable already, because, but then of course there is this subtle line, whether this, let's say, begins to get somehow a predicament and a distraction of sorts, whether this jeopardizes, let's say, our sense of equanimity, and whatever may also eclipse our capacity to see things in all-encompassing view. I'm just saying, because you're not being very specific, so therefore I cannot be specific to the situation. I can only speak in general terms about this. But in itself, there's nothing new. We could even say nothing wrong with that, because we all carry this in ourselves. We all carry these ways of how we respond, see, to any given situation, to any given involvement, where that involvement is required. In the first place, someone comes to us for consolement, for guidance, for what have you, because we put that vibe out, right? That already has that quality to that. And all it takes is simply to have that very clear access to where you hold the situation before you get really swayed somewhere, right? And that begins to move you outside of your, let's say, that place where you otherwise feel is not really unnecessarily shaken out of, right, of your equipoise, of your, whilst at the same time also seeing what is this communicates to me, what is this communicating, what am I learning right now in this very moment, what am I learning about myself as someone requires my input, someone requires my help, someone wants to be saved, see? Someone feels that like they are somehow dependent, and it feels also very comforting, satisfying to be put into that position. Let's not also lie and beat about the bush. It's always, like no matter how humble we are, it always put us in a position of some authority and some power. It is empowering, It is totally empowering. It would be opposite if someone comes to, guess what, this and that, but I don't give a damn what you think, I don't give a toss. Don't even, the only reason I share with you, because whatever you say is irrelevant. Whatever you feel is irrelevant. Okay. Now, that's actually a very cool in itself spiritual practice, right? It's when two young Buddhist monks sing in front of each other in the morning and insult each other to the, just to have a healthy exchange. Instead of having a chit-chat, they sit and insult each other. It's a practice, right? That they find the most, like, something that will definitely hit you. you know. But when the very opposite of that, you know, we feel immediately there and then like, what am I, you know? Do I rush with all my handkerchiefs? Do I rush with all my empathy and support? Do I just stand as an uninvolved bystander? Do I just, you know? It's not an easy job. But since you're relating this to me, there's a clarity needs to be first and foremost that every situation is like that anyway. Every situation is like that. Every situation is a situation where it's just like gently poking us or more acutely poking us, you know? What response it brings. And at the same time, how can we truly keep the line of empathy and truly reflect and be of help to someone where we don't pull these invisible karmic strings for ourselves and for that person? This is a high art. This is not, it's not as easy as it may seem. There's no formula. There's nothing that one can kind of do, you know, like, you know, tell me about your story. I'm going to be chanting inside, you know. Like, there's nothing you can do. You have to be present, whatever is there. See? And also you need to be very clear in what situations, and that's something else, something which, in which situations you have to also hold to the line of your integrity. This needs to be very clear. Where do you want that integrity be crossed, jeopardized? See? And in the situations where, for example, it's not uncommon at all, where you want to keep your alliance intact, you are placed in a position of compromise because you don't want to discard that, dismiss that, coming from someone who may feel hard done. And then you are put in a very, very uncomfortable spot because you already compromising your stand that you took in relation to something which in a way should be uncompromising. And then you entered the gray waters now. You see? The gray waters. What are these gray waters? These gray waters is because you're trying to reconcile irreconcilable. See? So whoever brings you into the world of, let's say, dilemmas, suffering, perspectives, you need to decide beforehand where you prepare to go and which lines you prefer not to cross. And then it's very easy. See? Some lines you decide not to cross, for example. See? Therefore, in the alignments that human beings created throughout various cultures, there were these helpful boundaries that were they paid with their lives. They, like, you know, they were completely uncrossable. They're uncompromisable. You see? Uncompromisable, because that's the line when I stand. It's not the line even about the idea or a person of someone else. It's my line. That line defines my stand. See? So, if it's not clear, that line will constantly be tempted to be violated or crossed, where you would be forced to cross that line, where you will be forced to kind of dwindle, not knowing where you stand and where you go. Your allegiance suddenly begins to be like somewhere finding neutral ground. Is there a neutral ground? Is there a neutral ground where all parties happy? Not sure about that. See? That's why I'm saying to you, it's you need to decide for yourself, Lee. It's not like something that is nobody is going to ask you for that other than you need to know. See? You need to know. This is when Anything outside that, fine, you know. I'm willing to hear all the stories, all the, like, I know where I'm centered. I know where I'm unshakable. I know where my ground is solid. And then, when you know that, then you can be of tremendous support, even to the one who would try to dissuade you and knock you off your ground. Okay? I may illustrate this with some mild and then drastic examples. See? Mild and drastic examples. Which one would you prefer first?
Let's go drastic.
Drastic. Okay. It's drastic, it's controversial, it's unpleasant, and many people will already disagree with that. There's a documentary, we can all check it out if you want, on based on the accusations and this whole scandal that broke some years ago in the practices of Satya Sai Baba, a famous Indian Hindu teacher who enjoyed tremendous popularity, right, both in the West and in the East, who has not only been, let's say, held accountable for getting involved in sexually involved with some of the disciples, but being sexually involved with minors, particularly with purportedly boys that are adopted into the ashrams, which is very common in India. It's in Indian culture, it's very common when ashrams act as orphanages. And it is very well known that his ashram had this, and they all grow and have an opportunity to grow as this, let's say, young Brahmins, young monks, young whatever, right? They certainly given better conditions from where they have been, let's say, rescued in life. Very often from the gutter, very often from being thrown on a, sidetracked of completely being displaced. But these accusations were there, and there was this documentary made. Satya Sai Baba has been followed by a lot of people, including some very well-known Westerners. I have encountered many teachers who have claimed to have, not many, some teachers. There's this Russian teacher who claims direct connection to this, of which we spoke in some of our Sangha conversations and even in the open field. Imram Kriya, right? You know that teacher from Russia? You know that teacher? Yes, some of you know, right? We spoke about that. Imram Kriya. He's a Russian teacher of Dagestani ethnicity, very well known, followed massively in the Kriya Yoga, right? Claims to have direct connection to the legendary, eternal, immortal Babaji, and he was a student of Satya Sai Baba. In Uzbekistan, I've met a lot of people because we have Satya Sai Baba communities there. Many of my people I knew, people from the community of TM, went to become the Satya Sai Baba followers. So bottom line is, he is very well known, and this documentary wanted to present different perspectives, different points of view. And one of the persons who was there is the founder of the Rock Cafe, of all the places, that guy, who together with Sylvester Stallone, like the companions, I don't know who knows Rock Cafe? Hard Rock Cafe. Hard Rock Cafe. Not just rock, hard rock. I remember when they first opened the store in Just Right in Piccadilly there, in London. It's a big thing. He's an entrepreneur, very successful businessman, and he was initiated and completely like claimed to be remade by Satya Sai Baba. So they were interviewing him there as well as many other people. And so when they were pressing in that kind of style, you know, like for him to make a qualitative statement, right? Giving like, are you aware of this, you know? And being a man of that kind of like, let's say, business and, you know, who wasn't just like, you know, he said, hang on a second, let me tell you this, okay? He's like really, really like kind of in a macho way. Satya Sai Baba is my guru. Get it? I don't care. Do you hear me? I do not care what he has done or not done. Whatever he has done is not going to change a thing on what I feel about Satya Sai Baba as my guru. That's it. When I watched that, I thought, wow, you know, wow. This is a drastic example of someone who knows the line, drew it for themselves, and they stick to that line. This can be immediately crossed as, oh my God, he's just as bad. He's a monster, this guy. He's refusing to condemn his teacher, right? But we spoke about this. You know, there were demons who were devotees of Shiva. That's why Indian lore is so important and profound, because it shows the full gamut, a full spectrum of what comprises human being. And it's not black and white, and it's not goody-goody gumdrops versus body. It's not saint versus sinner. These are the opposing qualities, one supporting the other. Right? Just as in a Leonard Cohen song, you wanted darker. Was it? Right? Before that song came out, I was already speaking to this in some of the Ralston immersions, that if there is a sinner, if there is a saint, there will be a sinner. Because these are mutually supporting realities. One cannot exist without the other. See? So if we are to approach this in all-encompassing perspective, it's much more complex. Much more complex. So these stories in Ramayana, in Mahabharata, where you see how the greatest hero, when I spoke about Karna, I broke down. Who remembers that at the Good Sound? I couldn't, because he was by far greater warrior than Arjuna. Unwinnable warrior. See? And yet, only through trickstery they could slay him. By virtue of his karma, Karna had to fight on the side what would be considered and is considered the wrong side of history, the wrong side of the Bhagavad Gita, because he fights on the side of those who were violating the Dharma. Pandavas fighting on the right side. It is with Pandavas that the Krishna is. Yet great other warrior, right? Bhishma is fighting on the side of the... See? This not to be taken as an anthropological study. What happens in your own neurophysiology? What happens in your psyche when you read this, when you relate that? What part of your physiology moves? What part of your heart get realigned? What happens? Where do you find yourself with that? Whom do you sympathize? Who do you hate there? Is your hate reconciled? Is the warrior of light touched in you? Because that's the story of Pandavas and Kauravas, has to. Where am I placed here? I'm placed constantly walk that line there. See? So going back to that, as I said, controversial example. I lay my cards on the table. I had immediate respect for this man, for his unapologetic stand, irrespective of what will be thrown, because he made that already pact within himself. He made that alliance. So none of your documentary investigation is shaking my alliance. Am I clear? That's how he speaks, you see? He speaks from that place. He's not, oh, really? Oh, my God. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I didn't know that, you know. No, that's not his language. His language is, my relationship is my relationship. See? Whatever you now guys doing here, fine. You're doing a great job. Do not try to, like, you know. So this, simply to illustrate to you this from deliberately controversial, deliberately opened to complete and utter polemics and, you know, critical stab at perspective. Other gentle examples can be found, of course, plenty as well, right? Where certain stance was required, irrespective. So I'll give you a gentle example. The gentle example, the most gentlest of all examples, is the example of the mother. Right? Doesn't matter how wrong is her child, she has enough love to forgive. Maybe father too. I hope I will never be put into that position. But I know that mothers have that. They have that in them. So what line do they cross? No, they keep to the line. This is the line of highest integrity. The integrity that holds all these sinners and saints in one light, in one heart. See? But of course, with one limitation, that it's my child. Therefore I forgive, it's my child. This is the language of Prakriti. Language of Prakriti is selfish language. It's my child, therefore I forgive. Doesn't matter how wrong he is, doesn't matter what, you know, I will share the burden. I will share the pain. I will share the crime. See? So, why am I saying this is because your inquiry might be completely about something else. You know, you go for a walk, you meet a friend, and they tell you the story. Someone's on a divorce, someone wants to this, you know, and they get you into the, you know, like. But the line is, that's where it runs, that's where the line is. Then you know exactly where you're saving the world and when you don't need to save anything. Then you can be always open to anyone's point of view, anyone's perspective, anyone's suffering without being pulled into their drama, without being sucked into their whatever. See? But if that line is not drawn, if that's not clear to you, then you would always be pulled left, right, and center. And there will be opportunities all the time to see when will you actually see that. You would be placed deliberately in these kind of situations that at some point will feel very unpleasant until you have to, you know, really make that clear realignment within yourself.